Hello, friends, and welcome to the Garden of Books. Today we're going to do a wonderful Christmas special. I'm going to use context clues, a little bit of research, and a lot of imagination to make a building from a Christmas book written by my absolute favorite author. I'm sure many of you probably have an idea where this is going, so yes, we will be building Scrooge's house from A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I don't think there's very many of you who haven't heard of this book or seen some variation of it. It is a masterpiece of wit, story, and storytelling that helped bring Christmas back to being the major holiday it is today, and solidified its predominant themes of charity, kindness, joy, goodwill, and most of all, hope. This book has the ingenuity of Charles Dickens all throughout. His wit, vivid descriptions, beautifully weaved in symbolism, characters that are as real as you or I, and and the beautiful lessons and heart within. So, how about we get started? Please excuse the recording. I did my best, but it's kind of hard to figure out first how to do a time lapse. Anyway, I usually start by building the front of the building just to get a good idea of exactly how I want the build to go and to make sure I get all the details in. Something that is very hard yet very rewarding to do in Minecraft is to try to replicate the feel of the building. Every building has a history, every crack and squeaky floorboard a story to tell. When I think of building something in Minecraft, I always have an idea of how I want my build to feel, and I always want to give myself space to make the story. This makes building places from real life rather difficult, as the atmosphere I want to convey can be rather vague. Books, however, always have a wonderful way of putting together a solid, tangible atmosphere. The real challenge is conveying that convincingly through blocks. The description of the house Scrooge lived in will always be one of my favorites. He lived in a chamber which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms in a lowering pile of building up a yard, where had so little business to be that one could scarcely help fancying it must have run there when it was a young house, playing at hide and seek with other houses, and had forgotten the way out again. It was old enough now, and dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge, the other rooms being all let out as offices. Despite the fact that he used to belong to Marley, a lot of the description very accurately reflects Scrooge himself, who, at this time, is described as a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner, hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire, secret and self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. That feeling of self-enclosed secrecy, the desperate greed, the jaded gloominess, that is what I want to emanate from this building. I had a lot of fun trying to figure out what this house might have looked like. Now keep in mind, this is my own interpretation and may be very different from yours or definitely Dickens himself. The house is described as out of place, having been lost there when it was young, and it is said to be rented out as offices. A lot of people believe that this house was located on Lime Street in London, an area created around 1790. It would have been a very condensed but busy commerce area. Also, it used to belong to Marley, who died at the age of 53, exactly 7 years to the day that the novel is set. I'm assuming he probably acquired the house maybe in his 30s or 40s, so I decided that looking for architectural styles from the mid-19th century was a safe bet. The building itself is dark, gloomy, and imposing, a solitary place right in the middle of a bright and busy world. I took a few pictures of buildings from Lime Street area in the 19th century and put together my own interpretation of the house. Unfortunately, my computer did cut out, so I didn't quite get the whole time lapse. But here is this house in all of its glory. I added quite a few details using glow lichen and plenty of vines. And I think I did my best to convey the oldness and the dreariness of the house. I used tuff to get that darkness. Unfortunately, there is no cracked tuff, so I did my best here. And the roof is all made out of black stone as well, just to give off that dark, dreary vibe. And I think altogether it looks pretty good. I'm very proud of this house. I think it's got a good Victorian feel to it. Alright, I have the interior finished, so let's go in and have a quick tour. We have the front garden that's dark, small. On the inside we have a very Victorian, or at least I tried to do a very Victorian atmosphere, but dark and empty. You go up the wide stairs that, as in the book, as it says in the book, are wide enough to fit a hearse up. Which I think I did a fairly good job. Brings you right up to Scrooge's room. I don't have any other rooms just because I'm only doing just some few rooms from the book. And you come in here. Here is the clock, of course, that strikes every time a ghost comes in. We have the bell that rings when Jacob Marley is coming in as well, when Jacob Marley shows up. And there we have the small fireplace, the carvings in the sides. We have his bowl of gruel and whatever he's eating, as well as some Victorian looking chairs. I tried to make this room cold Victorian atmosphere. There is a bit more, it is more decorative than we would usually think of when we think of plain and dingy. So in the sitting room we have the table, the chairs, and the small fire. Here in the lumber room, which is mentioned in the book, we have the washstand, the 2 fish baskets, a poker, the old pair of shoes, and the old fire grate that we have in here. And finally, the bedroom I'm very proud of. Here it is. Let me just light it up really quick. There we go. We have the bed curtains, the bed itself, and of course the closet and the window, as well as a few places to hang his clothes. I did the best I could, and I think overall it is a very fun way to imagine books and think about the scenes and what happens in them. Thank you so much for joining me in building this place. I read this book practically every Christmas, and I just love all the subtleties that Dickens uses. Every time I read the book, it's different, whether it's symbolism I missed before, or a new way of picturing or viewing the characters. This book is riveting and rewarding every time, so I'm so glad I could look at it and imagine it in a new way. So thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, I bid you adieu, and in the words of Tiny Tim, God bless us, everyone.